No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show starts now.
Ezzy, they call it sleepless in Seattle, but it looks like the Jets were the sleepless ones, even though the Kraken got in at around 3 o'clock in the morning on Monday night, or Tuesday morning, I should say, and had a big battle with the Calgary Flames last night in Calgary, which they were victorious, and of course came out with another big victory tonight in Winnipeg, holding on for the 4-3 win. They pulled off a Jets situation where they were able to be the comeback kids in the third period. Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba, and for all those joining us live here on the Illegal Curve post-game show. Good evening to you, and welcome. I'm Dave Manouk. He's Ezzy Ginsburg. I don't know why I almost said I'm Ezzy Ginsburg. He's Ezzy Ginsburg. I'm Dave Manouk. Ez, what are your takeaways from the Jets' first loss in, I think, 3 games?
Well, there's a lot of talk, obviously, you just mentioned it, Dave, about the fact that, Seattle got into town late and they defeated the Flames. And on Saturday morning show, Drew was basically saying that the Kraken are out of it, but I believe they're 5 points back of the second wildcard spot, right? And, I've already seen several people early on in the chat tonight talking about how desperate they were. Like, give the Kraken a lot of credit. Not only did they play last night, they were playing without Vince Dunn, their second leading scorer, right? Arguably their best defenseman. Alex Wenberg wasn't in the lineup last night in Calgary. He wasn't in the lineup. I mean, obviously Dunn has a bigger impact on the Kraken lineup than Wenberg, because Wenberg's not having that good of a season. But, give the Kraken credit, right? Like, they stuck to it. The Jets were the better team through the first 2 periods. The Kraken, I would argue, were better in the third, and that was pretty obvious with a couple goals, right? But I think, look, if Neil Pionk one-times that, it's in the back of the net. Pionk is completely wide open with 5 or 6 seconds left, but he has to stop the puck. And then obviously Joey Dacard makes a great save. I thought at one point it might have hit the post, but on the replay you could see that he just made the pad save. So the Kraken were desperate. It's not like the Jets didn't play well or anything like that. I mean, there weren't a lot of power plays. Kind of weird in a game, Dave, where there were only 3 power plays. There were 2 late in the third period, right? Yeah. Obviously, Stanley, that's not a time where you want to take the penalty. Kevin Sawyer making the joke that, if that was the mid-90s, it was the old Coho wooden stick, that wouldn't have cracked, right? I actually thought Stanley was very solid tonight. He had the shot. Monahan tipped it hit the post. I forget if that was the first or the second. But I thought Stanley did well on the third pair with Dylan Sandberg. So, I mean, overall, you're happy. I mean, there were no 2-goal leads in this game, right? It was always a 1-goal lead. It was look, there wasn't a lot of room on the ice. I think the Jets don't like the odd man rushes that they gave up to the Kraken, but I'll remind people, the Seattle Kraken upset the Colorado Avalanche in the first round. Who won the Stanley Cup 2 years ago? The Colorado Avalanche, right? So let's give the Kraken some credit here. I mean, they might not make the playoffs this year, but look, they're scratching, they're clawing, and they're 5 points back now. So you can say whatever you want to say about this Kraken team. Yes, they're going to trade Alex Wenberg. They might trade Jordan Eberle. They might trade other players, but they're still in the playoff race. And they came into Winnipeg on the second game of a back-to-back, and they stole the 2 points.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, Ezzy, right? Like, you got to look at it and say, well, which team? I'm not saying the Jets weren't hungrier, and you could say the Jets are dealing with this mystery illness bug that has been going through the team, and I'm not here to make excuses. That's a fact. Obviously, they've been dealing with that, and they've had guys come out of the lineup. Nate Schmidt didn't dress today because Rick Bowness said that he was dealing with the effects still of having been sick. He said he was really sick on Sunday in Buffalo, so that's why they're putting Stanley in. Obviously, there's no update on Gabriel Velarde other than the fact that he wasn't playing in today's game. Rick Bowness did say he was going on the trip, but wouldn't say whether he's going to be available to play in the rematch Friday night in Seattle. But look, ultimately, you give I agree. I'm with you. Like, you give the Kraken credit for staying in. And it's funny, as I always forget what the rules are. Is it when the first period is supposed to be good, but then you start to get progressively more tired as the game goes on? Or is it that you're slow in the first, but you might be a little bit better in the third? It's always the narrative is whatever ends up being the end result. And so Seattle, again, they stuck with it. They scored first to kind of, punch back, if you will. They had a lot of, even though the Jets, I thought, started the game really well with that really good shift, it was Seattle who also had a pretty good grade A chance within, I think it was Burakovsky within like 30 seconds after that opening shift by the third line. So you give Seattle a lot of credit because they looked like a hungry, desperate team to my eye.
Right. And they've still got a lot of talented forwards, right? Even without Wenberg in the lineup. We mentioned Wenberg, I think, was 6th or 7th on the team in scoring, right? We already talked about Jordan Eberle. You mentioned Oliver Bjorkstrand. Jared McCann had 40 goals last year. He had his breakout season at, 26 or 27 years old, kind of quote unquote late bloomer, right? So, I mean, there's still a lot of talent here. And the goaltending has been fantastic. Joey Decord, for anybody who hasn't been paying attention, he's got great numbers when you look at goal save above expected or save percentage. And Philip Grubauer has also been good. So they've got a good 1-2 punch in net. Defensively, I believe they're top 10 in the league in terms of goals against. It's the offense that really has let them down a little bit. They haven't been finishing this year, right? So again, the Kraken right now are a long shot, 5 points back of making the playoffs, but you're still mathematically in it here with 20 plus games left in the season. So I thought the Kraken stuck to it. And look, I mean, that's demoralizing when you have a late period goal like that, right? And in the second period, I'm talking about Lowry's goal, right? So when you score a shorthanded goal, and Jared McCann's shorthanded goal, again, this isn't Kraken lunch, Dave, but that McCann shorty was a beautiful top corner shot on Connor Hellebuck. Like, obviously, if you're the Jets, you hate giving, I think every team at any level of hockey hates giving up a shorthanded goal, but then the Jets storm right back and Lowry ties the game up, right? So I think that's demoralizing if you're the Kraken, but they stuck to it. And even though the Jets went up 3-2, they tied it up and obviously got the game-winning goal and hung on for dear life. But I think, you have to give the Kraken a lot of respect. And if you're the Jets, you're happy with the way you played. I mean, we were half an inch from this game going to overtime. If Neil Pionk just gets that puck a little bit higher on Joey Decord, it's a overtime game here.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We'll hear from Jets head coach Rick Bowness. We hope we'll hear from Jets head coach Rick Bowness because
maybe he doesn't want to talk.
Well, maybe he doesn't want to talk, or maybe we can't hear him talk because there's been a Wi-Fi outage. Unfortunately, Winnipeg doesn't even have Wi-Fi. So say the folks who don't live in this province, but the Canada Life Center, I can tell you, was having, as someone who was there for 2 periods, they were having Wi-Fi issues.
But everyone had insurance, though.
Everyone had insurance, but more importantly, unfortunately, when you switch to try and make this a cashless society, let me tell you, there weren't a lot of people having liquid courage because they couldn't buy beer. Unfortunately, unless they went and bought IC from Farmery. But unfortunately, there was no alcohol. Well, not none, but there was very limited because they couldn't use the concessions because, of course, they needed the Wi-Fi and no Wi-Fi in the building. So
I wonder if anybody was trying to use their Centratech card, trying to offload a little Bitcoin at the craft beer corner. But pretty funny because it used to only be cash, right?
Right.
So it's funny that people can't use cash. It's like, I wonder if anybody had just like thousands of dollars on them, but they couldn't use it at Canada Life Center. Pretty funny.
Well, all I know is that our main man, Andrew Hustler Patterson, I guess this is proving some sort of point he's been making. He's been, slamming the drum for not being a cashless society. And he's showing you the reason why with that play, with what happened tonight. So it was an interesting game, but hey, that's the beauty of being able to tether our devices and I just kept on rolling. And a lot of the scribes on press row were just doing that so they could keep, churning out the content. Although there wasn't a ton of content, some milestones. I mean, of course, Mark Scheifele hits the 700-point plateau on that first goal of the game by Winnipeg, and that's a major milestone for
beauty pass.
Yeah, and I mean, just as you were at the 2011 draft, so you remember when Mark Scheifele was drafted in Minnesota, in St. Paul, and a lot of folks gasped at the Jets going off the board, but that's looking like quite the pick and quite the assist by Dale Hawerchuk to help the Jets make that selection.
Absolutely. And, Scheifele just continued. I mean, he was a beast in the back-to-back games against Carolina and Buffalo. It was a beautiful pass. I thought he had a really strong game. I thought Monahan, Ehlers' line had a really strong game as well with Iafallo. Yeah. Nemesnikov, I thought, did really well on the top line. So, I mean, and that goes without saying that, I mean, that was one of Mason Appleton's best games of the year, I thought. And Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton, you always expect consistency from that line, right?
Yeah.
Fourth line, maybe a little bit of a quieter game. And you expect that, Dave, right? Like you expect it, especially when the Jets are down a goal in the third period, that line's going to play a little bit. I remember Perfetti had a couple chances, but Niederreiter and Lowry and Appleton, that line could have easily had another goal or two, right?
Yeah.
And Kevin Sawyer used the term human torpedo for Nino Niederreiter. That line was just going to the net, crashing the net, but having really good shifts where there was some sustained pressure, right? So the third line was excellent tonight. Josh Morrissey, I mean, what else could you expect for a guy that, should be in the Norris conversation? I'm not sure if he'll be a finalist, but he was excellent tonight. I really liked the Dylan Pionk pair, and why wouldn't you? I mean, they've been so solid all year long, but yeah, I mean, that's just one of those games where you say this was a really tight game, played against a really desperate team, and they ended up getting a late goal, and they hung on to the lead. But, I mean, it looked like there for a second, those extra 2 or 3 seconds that the refs added after Pierre Bellemare, did his best snow angel impression on the puck. Dave Hackstall definitely wasn't happy about that. But,
No.
You got to take your hats off again to the Kraken for coming into this game, second game of a back-to-back, with a couple key players out of the lineup. We know, Dave, they're going to be sellers. The Kraken have already made that clear. You don't hold Wenberg out unless you're a seller. They're going to trade Wenberg. We hear Eberle's on the move, and there's probably going to be other guys, but good for them for sticking in the playoff race.
As it was funny, actually, because Eberle, when he did the ceremonial face-off, because they were celebrating women in sport today, I thought maybe a lot of Jets fans would just like to see Jordan Eberle just cross over, put on a Jets jersey, make the trade for him now, and you could get him, in the lineup. But I mean, and it's weird because, yeah, I agree with you. Like, he seems like a player that might be on the move, but then you hear that he wants to stay in Seattle. And so just an interesting.
And why wouldn't you want to stay in Seattle, right? Like, I think you've been there, Dave. I've never been there. But I mean, I hear the arena is incredible, and why wouldn't it, right? It was just, the arena was just completed like 4 years ago. So it's one of the newest arenas, if not the newest arena in the league. I think it still is, but why wouldn't you want to be there, right? Like, it's a beautiful city, and the team's only getting better, right? With Matty Beniers, and don't forget about 4th overall pick Shane Wright.
Yeah. And and again, we live in an instant gratification society, so everybody's always expecting these guys to be players right away, and unfortunately it takes some time, and he's doing well in the
breaking
AHL.
News. Sorry, Dave, by the way, Colby, our photographer, videographer, is telling us Wi-Fi is back at Canada Life.
Wow. Okay, well, that's great news, because I was about to, and yes, you left off the exclamation point. He did a Jake Jarmel there, so big exclamation point by Colby. We were wanting to send it to the Matt Frost Media Center when Rick Bowness steps up to the podium and speaks after his team's 4-3 loss. We were a little concerned, bit rate, all this stuff. I don't know what bit rate is, but hopefully you do, or hopefully Colby does. And then we were going to figure out if Paul Friesen's putting his mic on, that means here comes head coach Rick Bowness.
Called that a frustrating loss. Does he have reason to be frustrated, or is that just Mark's competitive nature?
No, that's a frustrating loss. We certainly weren't at our best. Then when you make it 3-2 like that early, and then we give up that goal, that was frustrating. And to give up the penalty kill goal is a little frustrating. And then we had a great opportunity with the goalie out, and the guy makes an incredible save. So give him credit on that big save and coming up big at a big moment. So yeah, that's frustrating.
Yeah, Adam talked about you guys needed to make some tweaks. I would think it had a lot to do with the odd man rushes that you were giving up tonight. Not very characteristic.
No.
What was going wrong?
We were just making the D were pinching when they shouldn't have been going down. The forwards were too slow coming above and protecting the middle of the ice. We're very good at protecting the middle of the ice. So anytime you see somebody skating down the middle of the, we're out of position, or we're too slow reacting. And even that one rush early, like we had both of our D outside the dots. We never ever do that. So that's adds to the frustration that you get away from your game against a speedy team, and they're going to make you look like that.
That said, within the game, Adam's goal with, I think it's 8 seconds left in the second period, like you said, almost getting that goal at the end. What have you seen lately from your team's ability to push in really key moments and get results?
Yeah. For the most part, we do. We push back, and we never quit, and we didn't quit tonight. Things didn't go our way, but we had those chances late in the game with the goalie out, and the puck just didn't go in. but they were still fighting right till the end, and that's what you want to see.
On the shorty, was it kind of just a perfect storm? I mean, there's a line change, there's a puck lost, there's like
it took a funny bounce along the wall, and we just lost it. And then Nina was moving over to support because he thought we had it. We never did get control of it, and then all of a sudden, the middle of the ice opened up.
Kind of felt, from my view, that you guys had a lot of chances and a lot of shots, but there were those moments where, I mean, a breakaway, that's a tough chance. That they had a 5-1-2 or a 5-1-3, but most of the game, things were better than that. How does that?
We spent a lot of time in their zone. We didn't do enough with it. We didn't generate enough opportunities from that. So we need to generate more. There was rebounds that we didn't get to that they got to. So it's that finding those the puck retrievals that's got to get better as well.
I think on the icing before the penalty, I think Dylan Saber just kind of misplays it. He's flexing a stick. Stanley's slash is just the stick breaks, right? It explodes. So do you feel unfortunate for that, or was
No,
that
if you slash a stick and it breaks, that's a penalty.
just sort of like a watch out, don't do that sort of thing? I just feel like you don't have control over.
It's one of those things, one of those nights, yeah.
Sorry, just one more for me. Your team could look different next time we see you on the ice. I'm interested in your take on what you think that your team and your coaching staff has shown your management team as far as, you guys being all in for this push.
Yeah, look, we've had a good year. We're a very good hockey team. We are. We're legitimate, so things will take care of themselves over the next couple of days. But we like our team. We've had a great year so far, and we're hopefully the best hockey's ahead of us.
One quick thought on Sean Monahan's first dozen games or so with you here. I mean, the team went 9-3, and he scores 8 goals.
He's been a perfect fit for exactly what we needed for that second line center. The ability to he can play against anybody. He's very, very reliable defensively, wins a key face-offs, important part of both specialty teams, and he's made that second line what you need. You're not going to win the Stanley Cup with one line. You need a couple of lines, and he gives us that. He gives us that ability to have two really good lines, and obviously Adam's line is going to do their thing no matter what. So he has been an absolute perfect fit.
And new city, new systems. He didn't know hardly anybody here. He says it's kind of unusual for it to click that well, isn't it?
Yeah, well, he was in Calgary all those years, then he was in Montreal, and yeah, it's one of those things. But he's been a perfect fit.
Didn't ask about Mark Scheifele reaching 700 points.
Yeah, that's quite a milestone. Good for him. He works very hard. The thing about Mark, man, he comes to the rink every day. He's a real pro. He works at his game every day. He takes great pride in it, and he's always working on his skills. But every practice, he's one of the hardest working guys out there, and he's a good pro. He comes to work every day. Good for him.
There he goes, Yazzie. That is Jets head coach Rick Bowness from the Matt Frost Media Center. Big thanks to our videographer, usually just our photographer, but he also gets the co-billing as a videographer, Colby Spence, for figuring this out and getting us. Some machination as he got that Wi-Fi working. So we got a smooth conversation. We got to hear everything. The folks, over 500 of you right now here on the Illegal Curve post-game show. Your place to be, Yazzie, after every single Jets game, win or lose. Just make sure you're subscribed and smashing that like button.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there's over 500, Dave, we got to have at least 500 likes at this point, right? So I was just thinking, watching Rick Bowness, like, I just wish I could be as cool, calm, and collected at any point of any day as he is on a regular basis, right? Like, Bones is just so consistently chill, I find.
Yeah.
But and he summed up the game well, right? Like, the Jets were battling to the end, right? Like we talked about it. If Pionk one times that, most likely it's in the back of the net. And I realize a lot of people, would prefer maybe Gabe Vilardi to be in the position that Neil Pionk was in. But as we talked about, Pionk was really solid, tonight. And, look, the Jets have been hot as of late. I don't think, look at Dave, like I was critical. I think we were all critical of those games against Chicago and Arizona where the Jets needed overtime and they kept winning. And we kept saying, the Jets aren't really playing their A-level game against lesser competition. Well, that wasn't the case here. And the Kraken are a good team. They're not in the same category, certainly, as the Blackhawks or even the Coyotes, even though I think you would agree, Dave, the Kraken showed us a lot more than the Coyotes have over the last couple of months, even though I think the Coyotes have strung together a couple wins. But again, the Coyotes are not making the playoffs at this point. So I think you have to love what the Lowry line did. I think there was more, you would like to see more out of the Scheifele line. And that's why it goes back to what you said before, Dave, right? Like Gabe Vilardi is an option for Friday in Seattle. We're not sure. We know that he's going to be, for those who didn't see this on illegalcurve.com, Gabe Vilardi will be on the road trip in Seattle and Vancouver, but we're obviously going to have to wait, closer to Friday to find out if Vilardi is actually going to play. But clearly Nemesnikov is just a stopgap on that top line, Dave.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any question about it as that, he likes him and you can see, right? He's that versatility and he's that kind of, as the big thoroughbreds go to the gate, as they always have the little ponies beside him, kind of calm him down. That's what Vlad Nemesnikov is. He calms this team down. He brings them, I don't know if he wouldn't appreciate being referenced as a thoroughbred, but Drew's not on the show. We're not in Kentucky, so we'll just keep this thing rolling and try and keep it to hockey.
I really think Not Mall makes a good point here for those listening on the podcast. Logan Stanley is tall, 6'7", in fact.
I've never heard that before. Although I will say that he did miss an opportunity by not picking 67 as his jersey. I mean, he's 64, so he should have just gone for 67. That way, we'd never forget how tall he is. We just look at the back of his jersey number and we'd know. Oh, right, he's 6'7". You'd be like, is he 6'4"? No, he's 6'7". Look at the back of his jersey. All right, as we've had enough fun, enough preamble, time to get into it. Let's get into the Betway game recap.
The Betway game recap.
The Betway game recap, Ezzy, it's brought to you by Betway. I know that surprised you, but they are one of the most trusted voices in sports betting, both in Canada and all around the world. Betway is the sports betting app that puts you, the customer, at the forefront. With a large selection of betting options and sports, as well as strong promotions and fair odds, what are you waiting for, Ez? Head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. And as I always tell you, please play responsibly. Okay, well, things got started not very responsibly for the Winnipeg Jets because they allowed the opening goal of the game, 8:45, into things. Justin Schultz, his 6th of the season. The Jets looked like they were in decent control. They had the puck, and then Brendan Dillon isn't able to keep the puck in the Seattle zone. And then somehow it almost looked flying V style, as he almost like what the Jets did against the Florida Panthers, except that was a 5-on-0. But this was a 5-on-2 that Seattle used to attack Winnipeg. And that's kind of what you felt, that they were going to be opportunistic. I think that's the word I'd like to use for this goal, is that they take advantage of an opportunity, a turnover. They make the Jets pay, and it's Justin Schultz who puts it past Connor Hellebuck on that aforementioned 5-on-2.
Right. I mean, the key here is how quickly Seattle transitions up the ice off of the Brendan Dillon turnover, as you mentioned, Dave. And obviously, we talked about this. This is the key to the Kraken's game, right? Like, they love to counterpunch. They love to counterattack. They've got lots of skilled forwards. Like, you forget about a guy like Thomas Tatar, right? And if I'm not mistaken, didn't Tatar come over from Colorado? Wasn't he on Colorado briefly? I'd have to check that, but he was on the Devils last year, and I thought he was on Colorado. Not sure if he was traded or claimed off waivers, Dave. Maybe you can help me out there.
I'm looking it up. I'm looking it up as we speak.
I believe that Tatar wasn't on the Kraken at the beginning of the season. I might be wrong about
Colorado
that.
Avalanche. No, you are correct. He played 27 games for the Avs.
There you go. And I don't think he had that many points for the Avalanche either.
1 goal, 8 assists for 9 points in 27 games.
Yeah, but Tatar, like, he's a bottom 6 guy for the Kraken, and he obviously ends up factoring in, in the third period scoring, right? So, yeah, unfortunate turnover. And just really good passing here. Oliver Bjorkstrand to Justin Schultz up the middle, and the Jets are just, look, they're caught up ice, and it was the Scheifele line that was out there, right? And they're just too slow to get back. And Justin Schultz, look, he's been an offensive defenseman for many years, going back to his Edmonton days. But just good transition. Jared McCann picks it up off of the Dillon turnover to Bjorkstrand. And like you said, it was I don't know if would you call it a 4-on-2, Dave, or a 3-on-2? It was an odd man rush for the Jets.
It almost looked like a 5-on-2 as.
There you go. So it was a 5-on-2 for the Kraken. Lots of speed, and look, it's not Hellebuck's fault at all on this goal. And we can't say the same thing for the winning goal, though.
No, but I mean, yeah, I think your key
point,
point,
even though I think the winning goal might have been deflected because Sandberg, I'm getting ahead of myself here, Dave, but
yeah,
I'm talking about,
we got to go in order here.
Yeah, Andre Burakovsky's goal with 2.5 minutes left. Sandberg goes down to block it. So I'm just saying it might have touched Sandberg, but again, that was a goal that I think Hellebuck would have liked to have back because I think he was in position and it just goes off his glove. But obviously on this one, just nice shot by Justin Schultz, lots of speed. And unfortunately, the Jets don't get the first goal because they were definitely the better team. I think the shot attempts were like 2-1 in the first period. The shots were heavily in the Jets' favor. They had the better chances in the first period. But again, like you said, the Kraken were opportunistic on that first goal.
And according to Spency, he had Tatar on his fish sticks to start the season. So well done to Spency. I wonder if it was cod. Maybe it was halibut as. I'm not sure. I'm sure Spency will let us know. Hopefully it wasn't like.
I feel like Spency is a traditional walleye guy.
Yeah, but not fish and chips. You don't generally have Tatar. You don't usually have walleye.
You can have Tatar sauce.
Yeah, you can have Tatar sauce. That's a good point. Although if you go to that place in the Forks, I think they have cod, halibut, and walleye. So maybe we'll go for some fish and chips Azzy this week.
By the way, was it just me? And the chat can hopefully bail me out here. The chat doesn't always bail me out, but the chat, I would say for the most part, makes me look good.
Hold on. By the way, Spency had the cod just for the halibut.
Nice. I like it. Spency, always very quick with those quick quips.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Dan Robertson, after Thomas Tatar scored, said Tatar to Tatai. I might be wrong about that, but I heard that in the third period, Tatar to Tatai. I thought that was very clever by Dan Robertson.
I would, I went and I'm sure you saw it on the IC Twitter. I went with the old Tatel, aka from the Seinfeld days. But you can't go wrong when exactly a little Tata. Although I had to use a Newman one because that was the only one I could find on for the gifts. I was trying to find, of course, George Costanza saying Tatel.
Our boy Dom Zappia, not of Zappia Group Realty, but of the Zappia family, is agreeing with me that Dan Robertson did say Tatar to Tatai.
So what you're saying is the chat helped you out.
Yes. Well, in this case, specifically, Dom helped me out. But yes,
all right, well, Dom's very helpful.
Dom is the chat, yeah.
Yeah, that was helpful. Anyways, 1-0 for the Seattle Kraken after 20 minutes of play. And anything else jump out at you in the first before we get to the second as that potentially or not really? It was just kind of, it's funny. It was one of those games that I wasn't sure what to expect. Like I wasn't sure if Seattle was going to try and come out hard aggressively. And like I said, for the most part, it was just they took advantage of their opportunity. They created some good opportunities. And I thought Winnipeg, Rick Bowness, I thought that comment by Rick Bowness was interesting. He said they didn't play like they normally did. And I thought they were loose. And, like I said, that first shift of the first period where the Jets the second line hemmed them in. And then just one quick mistake and Burakovsky's out for the night and, out to the races. And he gets a good chance, which Connor Hellebuck has to save. But there were a number of those types of opportunities where their D wasn't tight and Seattle was opportunistic. So to me, it's just one of those things that you were wondering how the Jets were going to do it. And again, like I said, maybe the lack of liquid courage didn't have the crowd as amped up. I mean, a Tuesday night in downtown Winnipeg in February or March, I guess it's already March. Who knew? But the Jets found themselves down 1-0, but not for long. Kyle Connor, his 26th of the season. Nice pass, beautiful pass by Mark Scheifele. But actually, I thought the key play here, Ezzy, was the pinning himself up against the wall was Vlad Nemestikov to ensure that he didn't go offside. I thought that was just, again, a veteran play by a guy like Vlad Nemestikov because he was like pinned, like when a guy's like up against the glass like this. I'm trying my miming career right now but I like that Nemestikov had sort of that presence of mind to make the pass, but also stay on side, get it to Scheifele. And again, Scheifele's got such good hands and it's on and off the stick of Kyle Connor. 26 goals of the season for number 81. And he made a few defensive lapses today, but he can show that he can still score and it's a 1-1 game.
Yeah, if Connor was healthy the whole year, he'd have 40 by now. It's pretty incredible, right? Like
Mhm.
you think of like for Connor, you're like, oh, 26, that's pretty good. You forget that he missed, what was it, 15 games, 17 games, something like
16,
that, Dave?
16.
Okay, there you go, 16, right?
Yeah.
By the way, you asked me about the first period and then you skipped ahead to the second period goal, which is
Sorry.
fine. I just wanted to say one thing here. What stood out to me, I mentioned really like the Monahan Ehlers Iafallo line.
Yeah.
Much better than the Scheifele line tonight, to be honest with you.
Yep.
And I had here, I wrote Nino Niederreiter had a really good scoring chance late in the first period on an assist. Well, it wasn't an assist, but on a pass from Mason Appleton. And I just
Yeah.
thought, like, we'll get into that on the Lowry goal, but I just thought Appleton just looked really comfortable with the puck, really confident with the puck,
Mhm.
and just kind of hanging on to it a little bit more and just reading off of his teammates. Like I just thought those guys, to steal a Drew Mandelism, I hate to do it, but those guys were connected out there. Like it seemed like every time the Lowry line was on the ice, if there wasn't a scoring chance, Dave, there was some zone time, there were some body checks,
Yeah.
maybe a cycle. For Luis Batista, yes, this is a Blue Jays hat. I'm not sure what anniversary hat this is. I just picked this up at Lids. You can go back and listen to the show in the summer when Drew was giving me a hard time because I'm not as big of a Blue Jays fan as him. I tried to get a New Jersey Devils hat, but I couldn't find one. So I got this Blue Jays hat. So Louis Batista was asking about that. So it is a Blue Jays hat. But yes, Dave, on this goal, this is all about the vision of Mark Scheifele to Kyle Connor. And we've said this so many times going back, 7 or 8 years now, however
Yep.
long these guys have been playing together. And it's just a perfect pass by Scheif and just a bullet by Kyle Connor. And obviously, that's what you want to do, when you're down a goal, and it took the Jets a little while to get on the board, but I thought that line was rewarded. I just didn't think that they created it enough at even strength. And obviously the majority of this game was at even strength because the Jets only got the 2 power plays. And the second one was obviously a partial power play, right? Because there was only 25 seconds or something on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, on this particular goal, that's just vintage Scheifele and Connor. And they obviously couldn't bury another one, but on that one, it was a beauty shot.
And we'd be remiss if we, like I said, I mentioned it in our little preamble, but that's his 700th point as a member of the Winnipeg Jets. Only other guy who's done that is Blake Wheeler. So again, a significant milestone. I mean, look, it's not unreasonable to think that he could hit 1,000 points in his career while wearing a Winnipeg Jets uniform. Of course, he has 7 more years after this season to accomplish that feat. But a major milestone, and you can see that offensive connectivity between Scheifele and Connor. There's no question about that. Of course, we're Joel. Don't worry, we will discuss the lapses because there were a number, and like I said, you can see it. I said it in the press box tonight. I said, like, it's amazing to watch a guy who can do so much in the offensive zone be so invisible in the defensive zone. And, whether it's his compete to get back, there were a couple of shifts where he did, but he just doesn't have that same gumption, as maybe that's the word I'd use,
Sure.
to play defensive hockey as he does offensive hockey.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Connor's never been the best defensive player, but I think that's one of the criticisms of always having the pair of Connor and Scheifele together, right? Because we know, even though Scheifele's had a better defensive year this year, he's not exactly known for being a top defensive forward, right? At times,
right.
Yeah. He can maybe get a little bit lost in the defensive zone. And both of these players, by the way, thrive off of, shorter shifts and playing with speed, right? So when they get out there for 45, 55 seconds, and they're running around a little bit in their own zone, yeah, that's when they get into problems. So I think, when you talk about, what line has worked the best together, it's obviously Ehlers, Scheifele, and Velarde. And so you had the same issue tonight, right? Like you could make an argument, why weren't Ehlers, Scheifele, and Connor together again tonight, right? Like that, it goes back to, what we've been talking about all year long. Rick Bowness has his reasons. He obviously, Monahan and Ehlers have formed a lot of chemistry together, Dave, right? Like,
yes,
we can talk about that. You saw that again tonight, even though it didn't directly result in any goals, but you can see that chemistry there. Alex Iafallo is a great complementary player. We know that, he's got speed. He can get in on the forecheck. I mean, how many times have you heard that? He's a scrappy player. And, he doesn't have the same goal scoring touch that Monahan or Ehlers have.
Right.
But, there's still something off in the top six. It seems like whenever the Monahan line is clicking, then maybe the Scheifele line isn't clicking at that same rate. You haven't seen these two lines clicking together. And yes, Gabe Vilardi has been injured. It's 3 games now, right, Dave?
Yeah.
I mean, that does throw things off a little bit. But, as you go down the stretch here and you get into the playoffs, there are injuries. So you're going to have to still have, a certain pair or a certain line to depend on. And I do think the Jets have a lot of versatility in their lineup, right? Like a guy like Nino Niederreiter could easily play wing on either the first or the second line, even though he's been so good with Lowry and Appleton, right? But yeah, it's confusing. It's dumbfounding at times why this line gets hemmed into their zone so much. But I think that's even more reason why, Ehlers, the argument, Dave, I should say, for Ehlers to be on the top line with Scheifele is there.
Yeah, no, I think that's really well said.
Because of how speedy he is and how responsible defensively he is.
Well,
and Ehlers is not Yuri Lettinen. I mean, he's not a Selke winner. He's not Sean Couturier or anything like that. But I think we would all agree, Ehlers. If you're comparing Ehlers to Connor defensively, Ehlers is a better defensive forward.
I think that's well said. It's going to lead me into to our next goal for the Seattle Kraken. But I, of course, want to welcome everyone. We now, as well over 600 of you are in the chat. We do this, of course, this is the Illegal Curve post-game show. We do this after every single Jets game. And of course, Saturday mornings, 9 to 11, the Illegal Curve hockey show. So be sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Make sure you are smashing the like button because Ezzy and I appreciate it. We understand as soon as John Ginsburg, Ezzy's dad, the retired math professor, explains to us what an algorithm is, we'll know. But for now, we know that it does something with the algorithm. So we appreciate if you can do that. Now, Ez, you made a point about shift length. Well, talking about shift lengths, this last one, the goal that leads to the shorthanded goal for Jared McCann, they were on
a minute 20?
A minute 29.
Yeah.
For the Scheifele. Now, of course, it's not a line because it's a power play. But the problem that I have here is, and again, it's classic top line mentality. And I can understand it, but Rick Bowness has spoken about it. And I don't know if he didn't mention it specifically on this goal, but that idea that if I just stay out for another 15, 20 seconds, I can create something. I can give us the lead. Well, what they did was they created an opportunity for them to be tired and Seattle to take advantage. And it's on all of them, right? Kyle Connor, he did a little pivot, stayed at the blue line, should have gotten off. Mark Scheifele, same thing. They saw Josh Morrissey coming with a head of steam. Great. Josh Morrissey, you like that opportunity, and Morrissey can basically stay on the whole time, but you wanted to see the forwards change here as they don't. So Morrissey comes in aggressively, like that play. The problem is puck gets out of the zone. Next thing you know, Jared McCann breakaway, and the Jets are burnt. So to me, that was I would want to call it the selfishness of, even though you want to help your team, even though you're doing it for the quote right reasons, it's a selfish play to take a minute 29 on the power play. You're exhausted, and then you get burnt shorthanded.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned, there was a lot of pressure here, but because Morrissey misses the net, and Connor just can't handle it, and then Jared McCann finds himself, and Rick Bowness mentioned this, that Nino Niederreiter was there to support Kyle Connor. He's kind of he's going the wrong way. He's flat-footed, right?
That's right.
So give Jared McCann credit, for realizing this. And it's obviously, a nice pass from Yanni Gourde. It was Jamie Oleksiak who moved the puck along the boards, and Kyle Connor just couldn't handle the pass. But it was Yanni Gourde that fed Jared McCann there. And, Jared McCann had, what did he have? 100 feet between him and Connor Hellebuck, right? Like it was a clear-cut breakaway. And we talked about it. Jared McCann scored, not sure if it was 40 even, but he scored 40 goals last year.
Yeah.
So this is a really good goal scorer. Like when he has chances like that, even though Connor Hellebuck, I think we would both agree, and the chat would agree, that he's the best goalie in the world right now. It's a world-class shot by Jared McCann. So you're absolutely right. I think shift length is an issue here. We've talked about that before, like the first line. And look, we're not saying that the Jets' first power play unit isn't the more talented unit. All we're saying here is ideally you'd like to keep the first power play unit out there for about a minute to a minute 10 tops. Once you get into minute 15, minute 20, obviously the second power play unit's not going to be able to have much of an impact out there, right? So, I mean, look at, I mean, like you said, Dave, specifically on the first two Kraken goals, they were opportunistic here. Like at this point in the game, you're, just around the midway mark. Pardon me. I mean, you're past the midway mark. You're later in the second period, but still at that point, the Jets are the better team. So the Kraken are up 2-1. Obviously, we're going to get into the next goal here where the Jets tied up, but the Jets were down a goal and they were the better team. But that's the way hockey is sometimes.
Yeah, no. And again, this is just
Patrick's right, by the way. The Lowry line was the Jets' best line. I don't even think it was close, to be honest with you, Dave.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with Patrick, as I usually do, I think, but I think for sure with that comment, because I thought that they really brought it, and there's probably a little extra juice. Mason Appleton against his old team, Adam Lowry against his dad. And speaking of the third line, as that segues us perfectly into that second goal for the Jets. You know what they say, Azzy? They always say, play to the whistle, play to the end of the period. And that's exactly what the Jets did. And specifically that third line did, as they pushed for to tie the game before the second period came to an end. And that's just what they were able to do, with Adam Lowry scoring his 9th, Mason Appleton picking up his 16th assist, which set a new career high for him for points. I think that was his 26th, 10 goals, 16 assists for Mason Appleton. At that point, more to come on that front. And Dylan Sandberg, of course, picks up the secondary assist. But like I said, they very easily could have stopped playing, gone into the intermission down a goal. But you like that they play, and is, to my mind, an aggressive move. Mason Appleton behind the net. He digs out a puck, feeds it to Adam Lowry, and you can just see that sort of connectivity between those guys, like you said, throughout the course of this game. And we saw it on this goal to tie it up 2-2.
Right. And we talked about how good the third line has been tonight and how good Appleton was tonight. And Appleton has his head up the whole time, right? Like Appleton Spice Rum was not just throwing that puck in the middle of the slot, hoping that Adam Lowry was there. He saw Adam Lowry. He identified it. Identified big number 17 coming up the middle, right? And the thing that stood out to me on this goal too was Joey Decord, we know, is a good puck handling goalie. You could see that if you watch this game, right? He's very confident with the puck. But to me, he fakes going the other way. And the problem was nobody was at the point to get the puck for the Kraken, right? So, I mean, to me, I don't know if you want to call that a turnover, but, when there's, around 10 seconds left in the game, I think, he made the wrong choice. And I'm just looking at the replay. It might have been Jared McCann. It was Jamie Alexiak who was in front of the net. I just thought the Kraken were a little bit too passive in their own zone on that goal. But again, let's be honest here. This is all about Mason Appleton having his head up and finding Lowry with a beautiful pass. And to me, that's just a killer goal. Obviously, the Jets ended up losing the game. But talk about a momentum zapper, right?
Yeah.
Like you're the Kraken. You're in the second game of a back-to-back. And you're lucky to be up 2-1, and then the Jets score with 9 seconds left. And, oh, yeah, by the way, Lowry just snapped a, 22 game or 21 game goalless drought. So, I mean, if anybody deserved to break that drought, I mean, Iafallo recently did it. Niederreiter did it a couple of weeks ago, right? So, at the time, that was an absolutely huge goal for the Jets. So good on them for just a good, hardworking third line goal.
Well, as you mentioned it, and I listened to Kelly Moore and the gang on the CJOB intermission show, and they talked about the shot attempts. And I think, like you said, it was almost, I think it was like 56-30 or something like that. So you're right. It was almost 2-1, if my math is correct. And it was one of those, Joey Decord was excellent in net for Seattle, and the Jets have made it 2-2, and it got the crowd going. And again, like I said, the crowd was not having a lot of, excitement because they were unable to have some libations. Well, unless they could get to the sections where they could. Like I said, Hustler was a man possessed, talking about how his point is cashless society is not one he wants.
Yeah, how is Hustler doing on Dry Island? Like, why weren't they just accepting IOUs, Dave?
Well, I made the point. I thought we should be industrious, the press, and I said we should take all the popcorn and go down and say, we do accept cash. We'll sell you this bag of popcorn. But, I had no other takers. So my entrepreneurial spirit was broken by Mike McIntyre and the gang.
Mark Chipman would have appreciated that entrepreneurial spirit, though. Just the fact that you would have thought of that. Like, you were thinking of, how can I profit off of this situation, right? So.
our fortunes off others' misfortunes. That was my thought process, but it didn't quite work out for us. But anyways, the third period starts, and it starts off well if you're the Winnipeg Jets, because after tying it in, as you said, Ezzy, building up some momentum, the man, the myth, the legend, give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire, Nino Niederreiter makes it a 3-2 game, and you're like, all right, now the Jets are going to start rolling. And look, you kind of expected Seattle to maybe in theory, take a bit of a step back, right? Because at this point, like I said, I think they got to their hotel around 3:00 in the morning yesterday. So it would be very easy for this team to kind of chalk up and walk away. And especially after the Jets, like I said, tied it up late in the second. And now I think it was like a minute 17 into the third period. They get the crowd up and off their feet, and it's Nino Niederreiter. And it's funny because we often talk and he's often maligned for his stick handling, but the play really gets started because Connor Hellebuck makes a nice play over to get the puck up and out behind the net. And the point
Who's
you made,
maligning Nino Niederreiter's stick handling? What's wrong with his stick handling?
who said that?
I thought you said somebody was. You're talking about Hellebuck.
No, Hellebuck's, because he passed the puck out from behind the net.
That makes more sense. I thought you were talking about Nino Niederreiter. I'm like, I think his stick handling is fine.
You're like, what is it? It's like stick handling
7-time 20 goal scorer. I think he's okay.
No, he's okay. By the way, 666 in the chat right now, Ezzy. That's 667. Never mind. We're past that number. Anywho, the point is, welcome, by the way.
Mario Lemieux was loving that for a second.
For 1 second, and an extra 6 for good measure. But what I was going to say is that you've got a nice pass by Hellebuck, and the point you made earlier, Appleton has his head up, and he makes a really nice pass to Niederreiter, who puts it up and over. And the thing about Niederreiter, I always love, and got to give Colby Spence, our photographer, check out the Illegal Curve Instagram. But he does like this point after. He always credits the guys that he's with for assisting him. It's almost like he's more happy that they created a nice play with a beautiful assist than he is for scoring. But he was very happy, and he appointed Mason Appleton on that pass, and the Jets have a 3-2 lead after minute 17 into the third.
Yeah, and this was the most Nino Niederreiter goal, like the most third line goal ever, right? Like, I agree with you, Dave. Like, I like Connor Hellebuck moves the puck quickly up there to pass to Appleton, and then there's a turnover obviously on the boards. And look, Appleton uses a lot of speed here, gets the puck through to Niederreiter. I think it was Will Borgen was the defenseman, if I'm not mistaken, that was trying to check, or sorry, Riker Evans, who's a rookie. Dave, he was with Coach Ellie. It was Riker Evans, and that's a bit of a mismatch there. Just Niederreiter's a big boy, right? I mean, this whole line is big, and you heard Kevin Sawyer talk about that. And that's why I think they're so hard to defend when they're using their speed, their cycling, the high to low that you hear about so much, right? But this was just a vintage third line goal, right? Like, Appleton gets it to Niederreiter in the middle. And look, it was lucky. You could see on the replay that Joey Decard makes the saves. It goes off of Niederreiter's skate, right? But they, what they say, you have to be, what is it? You have to be lucky to be good to be lucky, whatever it is.
Yeah, you're right.
This line, again, I am here, and we might talk about this Saturday morning. I'm sure we will. We'll definitely talk about it, in the weeks leading up to the playoffs. I think I'm all for hearing that, the Ehlers line needs more ice time. I mean, the Monahan line, whatever you want to call it, the second line needs more even strength ice time. But in a game like this, I mean, you can see why Rick Bowness relies on this line so much, not just to check the opposition, but to score goals, right? Like, this was the best line at both ends of the ice. So again, I'm not going to look, people I think know me well enough to know that I'm a huge Nikolai Ehlers fan, and I think he should be getting more ice time. And our friend Scott Billick, who we had on the Saturday morning show, he wrote about it in terms of, Ehlers deserving more power play ice time, more even strength ice time. But again, just wanted to get that in there, Dave. Like, this was a game in which you see that this is not just simply a checking line. Like, they scored late in the second to tie it up, and they scored early in the third to put the Jets ahead. So they are having a direct impact on the game offensively. And look at Niederreiter, he went a long time without a goal. Lowry went a long time without a goal. Appleton has had his ups and downs. You're not looking for this line to lead you offensively, but in a game like this is Paul Maurice used to call these game grinders, right? This was a grinder. This was a back and forth, tight checking. it wasn't the most physical game. There weren't any fights or anything like that.
No.
But this Kraken team came into Winnipeg knowing their season's on the line here. Their playoff chances are slim at best at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a huge win. That was one of the biggest. You could see when they held on to that 4-3 lead, you could see all the players go up to Joey Decourt after. Like, they were pumped. They still have life here.
No, you're absolutely right. And you know what, as it wasn't long after. In fact, I was still writing the Niederreiter tweet on the Illegal Curve account when the Seattle Kraken pulled a Winnipeg Jet and cued the comeback as Thomas Tatar said ta to the Jets lead as he tipped the Matty Beniers his 18th assist of the season. And I just thought they cycled the Jets to death here. They really did. I mean, this was the Monahan line was out with Morrissey and DeMello. By the way, I don't know if you saw it but Colby at the end of the first period, sorry, I'm jumping back, folks, but Colby Spence, our photographer, took a picture of Dylan DeMello when he was lying on the ice.
It's a good
one. I jokingly said, this is a calendar shot. And now I can see that people are already memeing it up online. So good job, Colby, for creating some fun memes there. And Dylan DeMello. But on this play, nobody's going to be smiling because the Jets, you don't like that. You don't like to see that you take the lead, you build up, some momentum for yourself after the second period to start the third, but just 25 seconds into it, you get cycled by a team that's supposed to be tired, and they end up. It kind of reminded me of that Vlad Nemestikov. Do you remember when Vlad Nemestikov curled around and then he shot it and it went in? But kind of that sort of similar thing where it was like it didn't look challenging, but there was some soft ice there, and then Thomas Tatar tips it home beautifully.
Yeah, it was a really nice deflection. There's no other way you can put it, right, Dave? Like,
yeah.
And it was shortly after the Niederreiter goal, right? Like,
yes.
What was it?
25 seconds.
25 seconds. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you mentioned that. I was trying to
no, all good.
I was trying to massage the chat, and when I say massage the chat, I mean maybe post a few comments, and then I had the highlight up here. But yeah, I mean, we talked about it. Thomas Tatar is a journeyman forward. Remember, he was a good Detroit Red Wing, and then he's bounced around a little bit as his career has progressed.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, look, Matty Beniers, speaking of the sophomore slump, Matty Beniers had a breakout year in his rookie year, second overall pick, right? But he's had a quiet year. And I think, when you look up and down the Kraken roster, you'll see basically a team of kind of decent second liners, right? Like, they don't really have a clear-cut number one line. But, going back to this goal, I don't think you can fault Connor Hellebuck at all, right? Like, this is just good work by Matty Beniers, brings the puck from the goal line, spins around, and you could say maybe the defensive coverage in front, it was Josh Morrissey in front of the net. Maybe you could make that argument, right? Yeah. And I think the Jets were a little bit too passive, maybe a little bit too flat-footed in the defensive zone. But again, look, it was a skilled play by Matty Beniers to put the puck on net and a nice tip by Tatar, right? So,
yeah. No, and again, they just find a little bit of soft ice, and you can see that DeMello chases high, and then Morrissey's kind of caught in between, and next thing you know, it's in the back of your net, and it was a good screen by Tatar, and he gets it past Connor Hellebuck, and it's suddenly a 3-0 game. And I wouldn't fault Hellebuck on this one because I don't even think, to be honest with you, I don't even think he saw it, but ultimately it's a 3-3 game, and you're like, okay. This is, and it's 3-3 just less than 2 minutes into the third period. Well, the whistles, by the way, started to come out. We should mention that, right? Because there wasn't a lot of whistles in this game, and you weren't, and it was fun. It was interesting because in the first period, there were a couple of instances where there were plays that were marginal, but it's funny. That just goes to show you the inconsistency of officiating in the NHL, because there was a play I remember Dylan Sandberg got tripped up. There was probably another play where the Seattle guy got tripped, and you're like, oh, they could have called that, but these guys don't. So you're like, okay, well, they're gonna leave the whistles, and I'm like, okay, I'm fine with that as long as they just kind of maintain that. But they of course they gave the Jets a power play in the second, and then the first Jets penalty. And of course, I love that folks are mad at Dan Robertson, who's our buddy, because they felt like he was manifesting it when he kept mentioning how the Jets had not been penalized. And then somehow Logan Stanley, Big Stan, as they call him, he does the Logan smash, stick shatters. Rick Bowness wasn't hearing anything of it when Murat Atesh of The Athletic said sometimes it's just bad luck. He said, no, if a stick smashes, it's a penalty. So Logan Stanley heads to the sin bin, and you're like, okay, well, the Jets PK has been a little bit better of late, so maybe they're going to be able to have a big PK, because as what was it, with 4:25, I think, left in the third period, and they killed almost all of it. Mason Appleton, huge block. Unfortunately for him and the Jets, the puck doesn't get out of the zone. Seattle's able to kind of keep things rolling. And then Andre Burakovsky, he gives the Kraken eventually what turned out to be the game-winning goal, and suddenly it's a 4-3 game.
The former Erie Otter, right? He played for the Erie Otters. He played for the Colorado Avalanche. I know that.
Yeah.
But he played in the OHL. I think the Erie Otters. You'd have to look that up for me again, Dave. You're
doing
like
it.
my own personal Daniel Dale, right? Like you
And
have to
stat
fact
boy.
check me live here. I think it was the Erie Otters.
You are correct. He played for
there you go. Not bad.
Malmo Redhawks for 2 years, and then he went to the Erie Otters for one season, 2013-14,
Right.
where he's had 41 goals, 46 assists in
Yeah.
57 games.
And I remember we also had former Erie Otters owner Sherry Basson
Yes.
on the show, because I don't believe he owns the team anymore. I believe he sold it. I could be wrong about that, but
What is this, OHL lunch?
anyways, Sherry Basson, great guy. But on the radio days we had Sherry on. But look, I mean,
Stacy knows, by the way, Ezzy. Stacy said yes, he played for Erie. See, Stacy from Erie.
Yeah, well, Stacy is in Erie, so obviously, and hopefully Stacy had the best time ever. I think she did, because the Jets won. She was at the game in Buffalo, for those who didn't know. So shout out to our biggest fan in Erie, Pennsylvania. So yeah, I mean, on this goal, there's a lot that you don't like, but the thing is, the penalty is obviously the worst possible time. And going back to what you said, Dave, about the refs maybe putting the whistles away a little bit. I love games like this. Like games where each team has 5 or 6 power plays, that throws the flow of the game off. So I loved the fact that this was back and forth, played at even strength for the most part, right? But look, it's a penalty. We could argue this all day long, but it's a slashing penalty. It's literally a textbook call. If you slash another player's stick and it breaks, it's a penalty, right? And the thing that's the most unfortunate about this goal, as you know, Dave, is that Mason Appleton blocks the shot from Riker Evans. We talked about it. Riker Evans was on the ice for the Nino Niederreiter goal that put the Jets up 3-2. But Appleton is a little bit slow to react there. So it's unfortunate that he makes the big block. And then Evans gets the puck right back and goes to Burakovsky, who, as you mentioned, he was a sniper in the OHL. He was a pretty good player with the Avalanche as well. But, this is a goal that we talked about earlier. But, Burakovsky's at the top of the circle. Dylan Sandberg comes out to challenge him, which is great. That's what you like to see. We know Sandberg is a great shot blocker, great defensive defenseman. And then he goes down a little bit on his knee, Dave. And I'm not sure. You'd probably have to slow it down and zoom in to see, did that deflect off him at all? Did the puck change direction? Did that, maybe take the eyes away? Like, did that affect Hellebuck's ability to see where that puck was going? Because clearly Hellebuck reacted very awkwardly, right? Because that was a shot, like I said, from the top of the circle. Hellebuck's usually going to stop that, even if you're one of the best shooters in the game, right?
Yeah.
So, again, that's hockey. Sandberg makes the right play by, when you're penalty killing and a guy has that much time and space, that's what you want to do. You want to come out and challenge him. And it's just unfortunate that, either it deflects off of him or just Hellebuck just bobbled it. So, look, Hellebuck's most likely going to win the Vezina Trophy this year. So let's not get too hard on Hellebuck for letting in one bad goal. He can let in one bad goal every once in a while. He is a human being, last time I checked. I don't think he's a robot yet. I don't think his dad, Chuck Hellebuck, has made a Connor Hellebuck 3D version yet. So until someone tells me otherwise, Connor Hellebuck is a human being.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, look, do you like the goal? No, you don't like the goal. It's beat him from distance, and he had time and space to make that save. So we, again, despite the fact that we both are of the opinion that Connor Hellebuck is a top netminder in the NHL, and it's hard to argue with that. The numbers would suggest that. Sometimes he doesn't have the best games. And he made a number of quality stops. Specifically, I think it was either 2-1 or 1-1. And he made the Kraken passed it right in front, and he made just a phenomenal glove save. So he made a number of really nice stops. But, look, the Jets tried. They were aggressive, with 2 minutes to go, pulled the aforementioned Connor Hellebuck, and put out the 6-man for the attempt to try and even the game. And like we talked about in our preamble, there was a real good chance. And if it's probably someone other than Neil Pionk, or if Neil Pionk tries to one-time it, sometimes that's what the Jets do to their own detriment, is they try and slow the game down, slow the puck down. Maybe if he one-times that, Joey Decord doesn't make the save, and they tie the game, and then at least they get a point, potentially 2. But that's not the way the cookie crumbled for the Jets on this evening.
No, and I like how aggressive they were, and obviously the chance with less than 10 seconds left for Pionk stands out. But also, you remember Sean Monahan had an amazing chance right in front of the net. And we got to give plural chances. He kept winning faceoffs, right? So let's give Sean Monahan credit here. That was one of the reasons why the Jets acquired him, in addition to what he can do on the power play, in addition to his goal scoring in all situations. It's to win faceoffs in those situations when you're down a goal in the offensive zone, right? So Monahan kept winning faceoffs. I think he was above 55%. He might have been 65%, Dave. I'd have to check because of all those wins at the end there. But he was really solid. And I mean, look, Pionk one-times that. It's a tie game. The Jets maybe get the 2 points, gets the extra point in the overtime, right? So, it was a close game. I don't look, you have another opportunity in the rare, back-to-back home and home. And like we said earlier, and Rick Bowness was asked this when we played his scrum, another big shout out to Colby for hooking that up for us so we could listen to Bones post game live. The Jets might have 1 or 2 new players in the lineup for that game in Seattle. So you're going to face another desperate team. It's not like Seattle's not going to be desperate 3 days from now, Dave. Like they're still battling for their playoff lives. So it's going to be an interesting one. And then obviously you have Vancouver on the second game of a back-to-back here. So we talked about this back in early February, late January. March, you've got 16 games, and the Jets have only played 4 so far. So 12 games left in March. You've got back-to-backs. You've got, a bit of an East Coast road trip coming up at the last part of the month. So, this is not going to be an easy stretch. The good thing is, though, the Jets do have a couple days off, and so that'll hopefully help out a guy like Gabe Velarde, who's looking to get back into the lineup Friday. Yeah,
you're right, Ezzy. And that is the Betway game recap, which has been brought to you, no surprise, by our friends at Betway. Simple, fun, and safe to bet with Betway. So head on over to Betway, Ezzy, and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. Please play responsibly. Okay, well, we appreciate so many of you guys and girls being in the chat with us, and make sure you smash that like button. This has been the Illegal Curve Hockey post-game show, which for the record isn't done. We're just going to commercial break. Ez and I will be back with some final thoughts, a tough duck winner. And Ezzy, I just realized we didn't do the Seagram shot of the game. So we'll have to do that on the other side of the break.
We'll give it to Adam Lowry.
Give it to Adam Lowry right now. As he says, I'll do that maybe on the other side of the break. For now, these are our sponsors. So give it a listen, and we'll be back right after these words from them.
BP's new New York Sicilian Square Footers. With a thicker crust than ever before, they're light and airy on the inside and oh so crispy on the outside. You're gonna have your work cut out for you.
Okay, fine.
Try the New York Sicilian Square Footers, only at Boston Pizza.
You guys ever wish for a game changer in life? Like finding out your favorite snack has 0 calories?
Or discovering the mute button on Ezzy?
Picture this, a secret weapon for parking, where you can book a spot a whole month in advance.
Tell me more, Drew.
Pre-book your parking at really low rates, or maybe even for free if you use the code IllegalCurve.
Free? What is this, sorcery?
The Grid Park app. It's a real secret weapon that has affordable game day parking, and to sweeten the deal even more,
I love sweets.
Our listeners can use the code IllegalCurve to park for free.
Holy Zamboni.
Tell me about it. Just download Grid Park, GRYD Park, and use the code IllegalCurve, all one word, to park for free.
The game can change just like that. Accidents happen when you aren't protected. So now what? Getting to your injury quickly can make all the difference. Help prevent them from being game changers with Linden Market Dental Center. Bonding, crowns, bridges, and dental implants. State-of-the-art treatments are available to help you get back in the game. To learn more, visit LindenMarketDentalCenter.com. creating smiles for life.
Your coworkers love you because you always make them laugh. You're the life of the party with stories that have them rolling on the floor. Or maybe you're just the quiet one in the corner with the one-liners that just slay. Do you have what it takes to become Winnipeg's funniest person with a day job? Try your luck. Hit the stage at Rumors Comedy Club, and you could be walking away with $1,000 cash. Winnipeg's funniest person with a day job, presented by Rumors. For all the details, head to rumorscomedyclub.com.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
For 3 generations and over 80 years, Tough Duck has been making apparel that works and plays as hard as the people who wear it. From jackets to work boots and everything in between, Tough Duck's clothing can handle the harshest environments, even the illegal curve hockey show. Work to live, live to play. Visit toughduck.com.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve post-game show. I am today's host, Dave Manouk. He is the always analyst, Ezzy Ginsburg, and we were discussing the Jets' 4-3 loss to the Seattle Kraken. The Jets now are off until Friday. They'll be heading to Seattle. No practice tomorrow, Ezzy. So the Jets are off tomorrow. They'll be traveling to Seattle. Then they'll be in Seattle Thursday, Friday. And who knows who will be on the team, Ezzy, as of Friday, because, of course, that's trade deadline day. It doesn't seem like the Jets are going to be very active.
Well, they're not getting Anthony Mantha. We know that.
We do know that. And not only that, they're probably not getting Jay Gensel because it sounds like he may be going to Vancouver, who are willing to trade Elias Lindholm to Boston, which is crazy because they just traded for him from Calgary 33 days ago. So this could end up being a little wild and wacky. The Jets may be involved. They may not be involved. Regardless of whether they are or they aren't. Well, if they aren't, probably won't be as exciting. But if they are, you can stay tuned to the Illegal Curve channels. LegalCurve.com will have everything covered from a Jets perspective. And we probably won't do a pop-up show as if nothing transpires or if they make some minor moves. But if the Jets make something big, make sure you keep it locked to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel. And we'll try and have some analysis for you of any moves they make.
Yeah, and I saw, several people in the chat. Andrew Haleko, aka the Centratech CEO. If anybody has seen BitCon, they know what we're talking about. Andrew Haleko, of course, is a professor at the University of Manitoba. He's not the Centratech CEO, but Andrew was asking about Noah Hannafin. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense. He's a left shot, right, Dave? And we talked about it, right? Like, I'm not sure if he could play on the right side, but the thing with Hannafin is, do the Jets, you would have to think, Dave, if the Jets are acquiring Hannafin, would Ville Heinola not have to be part of that deal? Like, who are you moving to acquire Noah Hannafin, right? Like, I just don't see, I don't think Hannafin is, we'll see. I just don't think that's who the Jets are looking at. I really think they're looking at, a right shot defenseman, like a guy that we've talked about, a couple guys we've talked about, Alex Carrier on the Nashville Predators. He's a right shot defenseman. Good size, physical. He doesn't put up the biggest offensive numbers. Weber has mentioned Jan Ruda to us, big right shot defenseman. Another guy, Sean Walker on the Philadelphia Flyers, a right shot. Although you hear rumblings from Frank Saravalli, our good friend, that the Flyers might sign both Sean Walker and Nick Seeler, who have both been on the trade bait board. So we'll see what happens with that. It's not a guarantee because apparently Sean Walker's asking for $5 million a year.
For 5 years.
Yeah, which I think is a little bit high for a guy who really has just had, a couple of good seasons, right? I think he's 25, 26 years old, maybe a little bit older. I think so we'll see what happens. But I do think a right-handed defenseman just to have depth. Like, I don't think it's going to be Jacob Chikrin. We'll see what happens. But there's a lot of Jets fans out there that are hoping that, Chevy brings in a guy like that. But again, you have to think when you're talking about Jacob Chikrin, you're going to have to give the Jets don't have a 2024 first round pick. Of course, they gave it up in the Sean Monahan trade. A second round pick is not going to get Jacob Chikrin. You're going to have to give up quite a bit to get Jacob Chikrin because he has term left. Does he not? I think Chikrin has a year or two left. So
I think 2 years. Yeah.
Again, so we'll see what happens. Could there be, a winger acquired? We'll see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised if Chevy has 2 or 3 moves coming up, but your guess is as good as mine, Dave, in terms of, who that player is going to be, because a lot of Jets fans wanted Chris Tanev and a lot of fans wanted Anthony Mantha. And who acquires Anthony Mantha? Of course, one of the Jets' biggest rivals, the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah. No, you're right, Ezzy. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out because there's so many teams. Like, you talked about Carrier from Nashville. Well, up until tonight, when they ran into those juggernaut Montreal Canadiens, they'd won 8 straight. They end up losing in overtime. So they've got a point streak of 9 games, but it's hard to see that, Nashville is going to be, what are they going to be? Are they buyers or are they sellers? The Washington Capitals, another team, I wasn't certain what they were going to do. The Philadelphia Flyers are in a playoff spot right now, rather comfortably although your New Jersey Devils still think that they could catch them after firing Lindy Ruff.
They're done.
Yeah, no, I know. They're definitely done, but
they're done.
They did make a big move firing Lindy Ruff yesterday. They lost to the Florida Panthers tonight. They didn't get the new coach.
Why didn't they do that a month ago? Like, first off, Lindy Ruff, how big of a Lindy Ruff fan I am, going back to his days with the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah.
He's just a great hockey personality, and obviously he's coached hundreds of games in the NHL. But I just think it's kind of too little too late, right? Like the Devils have had goaltending issues the whole year. Obviously, the Hamilton injury has hurt them. Jack Hughes missed, I want to say 15 to 20 games. I think it's just too little too late, right? And, we haven't even talked about the Red Wings with the Dylan Larkin injury. I feel like we're about to do a trade deadline show here, Dave. Away a little bit from the Jets, but I don't know. I think it's going to be tough for the Devils. I think it's going to be tough for all of those teams. Like you mentioned, the Capitals, the Islanders. I think that the Lightning and the Red Wings are going to hang on to those last 2 wildcard spots.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you one more player and then we'll go. He's a left shot, Ezzy, but he plays on the right side in the last year of his deal. He's from Manitoba. He's 6'5". What about Joel Edmondson? Does that move the needle for you?
I don't think it moves the needle, Dave, but I would have no problem with that acquisition because
Stanley Cup champion.
Well, Stanley Cup champion with the St. Louis Blues, but remember when the Habs were swept, the Habs swept the Jets in the second round back in, what was that, 2020, 2021, I forget, in the bubble.
Yeah.
Who were the defensemen for the Habs, the top 4? It was Shea Weber, it was Jeff Petrie, it was Ben Sherratt, and it was Joel Edmondson. That was the top 4 for the Montreal Canadiens, and the Jets just couldn't penetrate when they got into the offensive zone. Like, you had all these defensemen that were 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", physical, mobile defensemen. And so Edmondson, I know he's towards the end of his career. What is he, 34, 35 years old at this point? But I would have no problem with him being an acquisition of the Jets. I don't know. I mean, I don't think his ceiling is higher than a third pair at this point in his career. I don't know if, he ends up playing with Brendan Dillon on the second pair, or if you pair him up with Dylan Sandberg on the third pair. Not sure about that. But I think Edmondson would be a good depth acquisition, Dave, but I don't think that you're moving the needle. Like, look at the Jets, I think have proven that they're a top 5, top 6 team in the league. Maybe, some people think they're higher. Maybe some people around the league think they're frauds. Obviously, I'm joking.
Yeah.
But,
we'll talk about that in a second.
At the very least, the Jets are a Stanley Cup contender. It depends who you ask, where you have them ranked. Like, are they a top 3 team, a top 5 team, a top 8 team? But I think if they really want to move the needle, then you're going to have to bring in somebody to beef up the right wing in your top 6, right? Like, we've talked about the guys like, Jordan Eberle, Pavel Buchnevich, Anthony Mantha would have been nice, right?
Yeah.
There's some other options out there. I don't think the Jets have ever been in on Jake Gensel, and that's simply because I don't think they necessarily want to give up the assets to acquire him, because we know he's a rental. He's a pure rental at this point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay, as we're going to hit the Tough Duck hardest hitting comment, but I'm going to give the Seagram shot of the game because I have someone to give it away.
The Seagram shot of the game.
Now, the Seagram shot of the game isn't going to guy who took a shot in the game. I'm giving it to Simon Ward. I don't know if the chat can see that.
Oh yeah.
Simon Ward put this was what I was hoping that someone would do. Actually, as he did pretty good in isolation there, but he had a nice, I remember, if you remember on Saturday's show, I said, I really hope someone does a Winnipeg frauds, or no, I shouldn't say Winnipeg frauds, but something fraudulent after the comment from someone on Spitting Chicklets. So Simon Ward had a frauds Winnipeg at Ryan Whitney t-shirt made up before the game. So credit the creativity of Simon Ward. And that was what I was hoping someone would do.
Love that shirt.
Really embrace it, really kind of own the fraud comment that some random NHLer who the Jets could face in the first round made about the Winnipeg Jets. So Simon Ward not only has the best t-shirt, but also gets the the Seagram's shot of the game. But speaking of Tough Duck, let's head to Tough Duck's hardest hitting comment.
The Tough Duck hardest hitting comment.
Okay, so I could give it to Sparky for this comment. San Jose Sharks were right. The internet sucks. That was an amazing comment. I almost thought of giving it to Sparky for this, but I'm going to give it to Sparky for this comment. Need 2-line scoring. Bones is trying to find it, but leave Monahan with Ehlers and put Barron on that line. Look, Morgan Barron scored was it the winning goal? It was the winning goal against Buffalo, right? 10th of the year. I think Dave would agree that I've always been a big fan of Morgan Barron, even though I always give Dave credit because Barron was a guy who on the Moose, Dave was always really high on. And, Barron has turned out to be a really solid NHLer, whether he's on the fourth line or third line, mostly the fourth line. Just to finish Sparky's comment, Ehlers can play off wing, Barron doing heavy work, opening up ice for the other two. Look, it's something to think about, especially Dave, if the Jets don't go out and acquire a top six or quote unquote top six, top nine winger. Because if you think about it, if the plan is to have Cole Perfetti on the fourth line, I don't know. I still don't think Alex Iafallo is the medium-term solution here for the Jets or long-term solution for the Jets. When I say long-term, I mean heading into the playoffs, right?
Right.
I think having Morgan Barron as an option in your top six, I don't think it's crazy. Look, the guy obviously has third-line skill, and I think arguably second-line skill in the Jets with Barron on the fourth line. With Perfetti and Gustafson, obviously makes it one of the more dangerous fourth lines in the league. But love that comment from Sparky. I still think, even though the Jets played well tonight and almost forced overtime, I still think that top six needs work. And that's with Gabe Velarde in the picture here, because obviously we talked about it. Vlad Nemesnikov is not going to be in your top six when Velarde is healthy. He just isn't, unless he's playing on the wing on the second line. But that brings up the same type of issues that we've been talking about all year long. You need a sniper. You need a goal scorer on that second line. So Sparky, send me an email, Ezra@illegalcurve.com with your mailing info, or slide into my DMs on X, ICSEG, with your mailing info, and Tough Duck will ship out a toque to you. And you're going to need one at least for the next day or two. It's supposed to warm up on the weekend, but it's been a little bit nippy, Dave, out the last couple of days. I think you'd agree.
I would agree. In fact, I had to clear some snow, so we had a little bit of a snowfall here in Winnipeg. But again, it's going to head over. It'll be balmy, and hey, we're not that far away from what do they call it? April showers. So we're not that far as
the Ides of March. That's what we're in right now, right?
That is my half birthday, for the record, just in case you were wondering. Half birthday. Sam Gagner on waivers. I was thinking, well, would there be? You need a right way. You need a right shot winger. Maybe you could
love Sam Gagner. Maybe he'll have an 8-point night.
Exactly. And then it was funny because I think is Jordan Eberle. And we got to wrap it up. We've already gone long. We're going to be into the Illegal Curve trade deadline show.
Sorry, Jordan Eberle has a 16-team no trade list. So, again, Eberle, you have to think he can waive that.
Yeah,
you would have to think Winnipeg is one of those teams, unfortunately, because we know Winnipeg is on a lot of teams no trade list. It just is. Yeah. It's the reality. Yeah. So could he waive that? Yes. But I temper expectations here, Dave, with Eberle to the Jets. I just don't necessarily know if that's a fit.
Yeah, no, I was thinking
to play on Friday versus the Jets anyways, right?
Well, I was going to say, but and that game I believe is his 999th game in the NHL. So I thought, wouldn't it be funny if the Jets acquired him, and then of course he had played his 1000th game in a Winnipeg Jets uniform.
Jets fans aren't going to like this, but you know who Eberle makes a lot of sense for me? Not Edmonton, Colorado.
Yeah. Well, you put
Eberle in your top six. I mean, and the reason why I say that is because obviously that's an in-division acquisition, right? So Jets fans aren't going to like hearing that, but we'll see what happens. Maybe the Kraken hold on to Eberle now that they've won their last 2 games and they're still in the playoff race. We'll see.
Well, you know what, Ezzy? We'll see is a famous statement from Rick Bowness. It's the statement that's going to send us off. So where's Frosty Winnipeg? I mean, Frosty, this is your time to shine. It's time for us to say goodbye to the folks and say thanks to our sponsors. If Frosty's not going to do it, Ezzy, I'll do it without him. But big thank you to all of the sponsors of Illegal Curve who make the post-game show, the Saturday show, and the website a possibility. There's Frosty. They are Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Grid Park. Use code Illegal Curve to park for free as Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Betway, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rolly's Transfer, and Farmery Beer. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. I'm not blind, Rob, but he didn't do it before I had the read started. That's why. But anyways, look, we always appreciate whenever you join us, win, lose, or I see Drew. We do these after every single Jets game. And of course, on Saturdays, this has been the Illegal Curve post-game show. I'm Dave Minuk. He's Ezzy Ginsburg. That's Dom Zappia. And we will speak to you again, unless there's some craziness and we need to do a pop-up show, as we'll speak to you Friday, probably around what time would you say, Ezzy? It's a 9 o'clock start, so close to midnight, which will be leading us into the Illegal Curve Hockey show, but it'll be a late one on Friday. Join us for the Illegal Curve post-game show. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you joining us for now. Have a good rest of your night. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow @Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.